Well, good morning, everyone. And my name is Glenn Casamass. I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forest and Pawnee National Grassland, headquarters out of Fort Collins. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the signing of the Western Watershed Enhancement Partnership, an agreement that will set the stage for federal agencies to work with state, local, and private partners to reduce the risk of wildfires in our watersheds. We're honored here today to have Secretary Vilsack and Secretary Jewell. We want to welcome you. And I also want to thank a whole host of folks who came to support this effort. Mark Gabriel, the Administrator for Western Area Power, Roseanne Gonzalez-Schreiner of the Bureau of Reclamation, Dan Harone, the Regional Forester for the U.S. Forest Service, Rocky Mountain Region, Colorado Secretary of Agriculture John Salazar, Dean Joyce Berry of Colorado State University, Senator John Kafalis, State Senator John Kafalis, and as well as representatives from Senator Bennett's office, Senator Udall's office, Congressman Paulus's office, a representative from Randy Fisher's office, Mike Applegate and Eric Wilkinson of Northern Water, and Mike Lester of the Colorado State Forester. Welcome. And representatives from National Park Service, I believe Denver Water, NRCS, Greeley and Bellevue Water, and the Rocky Mountain Research Station. So quite a number of folks come out to support this effort. Holding the signing here in Colorado highlights the fact that we've established a pilot project called the Colorado Big Thompson Headwaters Partnership that brings together Northern Water, Conservancy District, Colorado State Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Reclamation, and Western Area Power Administration to proactively treat vegetation and plan for post-wildfire restoration in our watersheds. Our agreement was signed in 2012, and we began to work collaboratively to improve the health and resiliency of our forests, reduce the risk of wildfire to watersheds, pre-plan for response, and secure water delivery to a whole host of folks here in northern Colorado. Several individuals that I do want to make mention of who were an integral part in putting together this partnership for us here locally is Jerry Gibbons from Northern Water, Hal Gibbs of the U.S. Forest Service, and Hal has been instrumental in shepherding through a number of partnerships that we have on our forest throughout northern Colorado. Ron Cousineau from Colorado State Forest Service, Lucy Maldonado from the Bureau of Reclamation, and Ron Turley of Western. Also want to thank Larimer County Parks for providing the venue. Horsetooth Reservoir, as some of you may know, is an integral part of the Colorado Big Thompson project that provides water to residents of northern Colorado. As you can see behind me, burn scars are visible on the hills from both the Galena and the High Park fires that occurred in March of this year and last year, and that's just highlighting some of the important reasons why we're here today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack.
Glenn, thanks very much. A very nice job of explaining the partnership. This is such a beautiful scene. It's almost, I feel like just sitting down and letting everybody just watch it and partake in it. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and certainly want to acknowledge a great partner in Secretary Jewell in the Department of Interior. While she has only been on the job for a couple of weeks, she has been very active and very involved in working collaboratively with us at the Forest Service and USDA. And I look forward to continued work. I think this Secretary, as it was the case with the previous Interior Secretary, Ken Salazar, is extraordinarily passionate about these landscapes, extraordinarily passionate about the natural resources that this country has and the great opportunity that it creates for economic opportunity, for recreation, for just sheer enjoyment. So we have a strong partnership. The President established the Rural Council several years ago, and he asked me to chair the Rural Council, and it really was designed to encourage all departments of government that impact and affect rural areas to come together to figure out how to better integrate and coordinate the resources that we have. It's no surprise we're dealing with constrained resources, and it's also no surprise that we're continuing to see ever-increasing threats to our natural resources, especially with wildfire. And so it is imperative that we work together and collaboratively. You know, we're here today because this reservoir, this watershed makes a big difference to a lot of people. It provides water for 850,000 people in 8 counties. From my perspective and Commissioner Salazar's perspective, it also provides the water to irrigate 640,000 acres of agricultural land. I certainly appreciate Commissioner Salazar being here today. There is no commissioner or secretary of agriculture on the state level that's more focused on improving agriculture than Commissioner Salazar. We shared the day yesterday together at the opening of Lupino Foods processing facility. It's the largest mozzarella cheese manufacturer in the world. They're going to double the amount of dairy they need in this great state. And so that was a great day of celebration, and here we are again for another celebration. This watershed also provides power to almost 60,000 homes. So it makes a difference. But the sad reality is that when we are faced with ever-increasing fires and the intensity of these fires, it threatens that water supply. It threatens the quality, and it threatens the affordability. Because if this water has to be treated because of sediment and ash and so forth, it obviously is going to increase the cost. And that's going to make it more difficult for folks in communities to live, work, and raise their families in these beautiful vistas. So that's the reason why we are forming this partnership. It's patterned after a successful effort that the USDA Forest Service had with the Denver Water Board following a devastating fire and its forest to faucets program. It is focused, as Glenn indicated, on restoration and prevention, improving the resilience of our forests to do a better job of conserving and preserving our precious water resources. It also helps to allow them to be more adapted and to mitigate the consequences of a changing climate and invasive species which we know are impacting the forest health. It will improve water quality, it will protect habitat, and we believe over time it will reduce fire risk. You know, the reality is that we need more proactive partnerships like this. And this is not just a partnership between 2 federal agencies. It also involves the Colorado State Forest Service, the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, and the private sector. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to just say a word about the importance of both prevention and focusing on the aftermath of fires. The reality is we're going to continue to have fires. We're going to continue to aggressively fight those fires. But the truth is that they're going to impact the landscape, and they're going to create the risk of flooding and greater difficulty after the fire. That's why we're working to assess fire damage as quickly as possible, to put in place remedial action quickly to eliminate and mitigate those risks, and while we're calling on communities to take further steps with their building codes to perhaps reduce the possibility of these intense fires, and even asking homeowners to consider something as unique and different as flood insurance in this part of the country, because there is a hazard that potentially could impact homes after a devastating fire. These are all steps that I think is important in an ongoing partnership. Let me just finish by saying there is enormous potential for a community in an area like this in terms of recreation. There's enormous potential for reviving the rural economy of this area, so long as we maintain and protect these great natural resources. Outdoor recreation, and Sally Jewell certainly knows this better than anyone, is a multi-billion-dollar industry annually. And a lot of those resources, a lot of that money can be spent here, stimulating business, small businesses, and allowing these areas to flourish. So we're excited about this partnership. We look forward to continued partnerships. We have a wonderful partnership in our working lands for wildlife with the Interior Department, as well as our recently announced Sentinel landscape effort. And I think you're going to continue to see more and more of this type of collaborative effort between these 2 great departments. So thank you all for being here. Glenn?
Thank you, Mrs. Secretary, and now we'll hear from Secretary Jewell.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm actually in my 99th day on this job, following in the footsteps of another great Salazar. And I'm very pleased to be in the great state of Colorado that has hosted the Salazar family for 5 generations or more. 7 generations, okay. Tom Vilsack was the first cabinet secretary that reached out to me as I was going through my confirmation process to help me learn the ropes. He was the first cabinet secretary that I traveled with. And the first trip that we took was actually out to Boise to the National Interagency Fire Center, because I think there's no better place to see where what department or agency you work for does not matter than in fighting wildland fire. So whether you're in the Forest Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the local state foresters, the community firefighting squad, volunteer or permanent staff, you work together to solve these great challenges that we have in the West. And as Secretary Vilsack mentioned, we do have rising temperatures. It's affecting beetle kill. You know that here in Colorado, particularly on the other side of the Rockies. You've got snow melting early. We have to capture that. We have increasing demands on the water supply. My colleagues at the Bureau of Reclamation manage the water facilities, but the watersheds are largely in Forest Service hands. And so this is a perfect illustration of the opportunity of two federal agencies to work together, but they're also in state lands and they're in private lands. And so how do we think about our landscapes in a more holistic way? How do we understand these great landscapes that are behind us and get ahead of the game as we are in a situation of a changing climate? And we do need to think very thoughtfully about mitigating the impacts of those things that we're feeling on the ground. So the Bureau of Reclamation manages more than 40 dams and related facilities that are downstream of USDA forests that are so critical to the health of that water supply. As I've been on a tour this morning since early, we've seen a number of different facilities, from the pipes that go down to support the water supplies downstream here in the valley. We've also seen hydroelectric facilities where water tunnels through these hillsides. And I've seen pictures of what's happened just in these recent fires. It looks very beautiful behind us, but you do see the impact of the wildfires on the slope. When that causes the runoff to get into these streams and causes that silting and sedimentation, it fills up the Bureau of Reclamation pipes. Denver experienced a very significant downstream flow. I think it was a million cubic tons of sediment that cost $26 million to clean up. If an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure, those numbers should illustrate to you why partnerships like this are so important and how we can work together. It's actually a million cubic yards. So we have limited federal resources. We have limited state and local resources. All governmental agencies are struggling. And this is one example where we can work together to make our dollars go farther. It's also an example where the hard-working, dedicated individuals at government in all levels can be appreciated for the work they do on our landscapes, because I think so often the great work that provides the water that comes out of our tap, or the food that we eat, or the forest that we enjoy for recreation, or the water we enjoy for recreation isn't associated with the taxes we pay that support them. So this is a good illustration of making the taxes we all as taxpayers may go farther, but also highlighting just the important work of our colleagues in all of these areas. So this Western Watershed Enhancement Partnership is an opportunity for Tom and my agencies to work together, not just here, but we've got 6 pilot projects in different states that are going to be coming up. My home state of Washington, other states throughout the West. And it's going to help us focus on these things that really become win-win solutions. Colorado is ahead of the game. This is the first place that an MOU has already been signed by these agencies to be, and Tom and I have pretty nice offices. Not big paychecks, but nice offices. Nothing like the office that our colleagues out here have. This is their office, which is pretty spectacular. But it's only spectacular because you care about the landscapes and you manage them collectively. So Colorado deserves a lot of kudos for working together with the federal government, with local agencies, private utilities, people that rely on these supplies to make a difference. And it is going to be a model that will be used immediately in Arizona, Idaho, California, Washington State, and Montana. So I've learned that people are competitive everywhere, and Colorado's winning in this one, but there are others on your heels. So we encourage more of this type of cooperation And as one of my colleagues from the Bureau of Reclamation said today, in 1937, when all these canals and reservoirs and things were envisioned, no one envisioned $500,000 yachts on this reservoir behind us. No one envisioned probably that mountain bike trail that we went along, but these are things that speak to what Colorado is known for. It's known for its agriculture, it's known for its mountains, it's known for its forestry, but none of that happens without agencies cooperating together, and I just can't think of a better group of partners than the ones that are joining us today. So thank you very much on behalf of Bureau of Reclamation and the Department of Interior. We look forward to a lot more of these. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary Jewell. Now we'll hear from Eric Wilkinson, the General Manager of Northern Water Conservancy District. Come on up, Eric.
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Secretary Vilsack and Secretary Jewell to God's country. I'd also like to thank everybody for the opportunity today to speak about the importance of the Western Watershed Enhancement Partnership to northeastern Colorado and to Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District and its municipal subdistrict. The drinking supplies of about a fourth of the population of northeastern Colorado were affected by the Galena fire, the High Park fire, and the Hewlett Gulch fire. That impact was specifically realized by the cities of Greeley, Fort Collins, Windsor, and the other smaller communities in northeastern Colorado, as well as the rural areas. Basically, because of the devastating impacts of the fires on the Poudre watershed. Watershed health is of paramount concern. The CBT project and Windy Gap project watersheds have been severely impacted by beetle infestations, and these two projects do provide water supplies to about 860,000 people in northeastern Colorado. Horsetooth Reservoir behind us and Carter Lake to the south, integral facilities of the CBT project, provide water supplies to 30 water providers, drinking water providers. Wildfire also affects the water supplies that are vitally important to our agricultural economy in this area. The Front Range watersheds, as well as the CBT project, provide water supplies to about 1 million acres of highly productive farmland in the state of Colorado. Water quality and infrastructure impacts from sediment, debris, and ash generated from the runoff of watersheds affected by wildfires can be extremely devastating, as all of us know, including such things as drinking water treatment challenges, as it is very difficult to bring that water to drinking water standards, but more universally, the threats of flooding and debris and sedimentation deposition and the overall effects on water quality. CBT project water facilities are surrounded by, and their watersheds include lands owned by private individuals, the Forest Service, and the National Park Service. Cooperation, collaboration, and coordination are essential to address wildfire challenges, as the negative impacts to infrastructure and to water supplies can be tremendous. Coordination with local, state, and federal agencies have been one of the best things that came out of the High Park fire, Hewlett Gulch fire, and Galena fires. Coordinated mitigation efforts on the watersheds associated with Horsetooth Reservoir that you see behind me following the High Park and Galena fires are just one example of that outstanding cooperation. Northern Water would like to thank the efforts of the NRCS, the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Reclamation, and the commitments of the city of Fort Collins and Greeley to address those impacts. The Colorado Big Thompson Headwaters Partnership between Reclamation, the U.S. Forest Service, and the Colorado State Forest and Northern Water is another example of that cooperation. This partnership will include programs to address fuel reduction, as well as pre-planning for those inevitable post-fire effects and the mitigation efforts that we'll take to address those. Northern Water would very much like to express its sincere thanks to the many agencies and individuals here today that are gathered to celebrate the signing of the Western Watershed Partnership. We also want to thank you for the efforts that you have put forward in addressing the effects of the fires that have been experienced in northeastern Colorado. We also want to thank you for the planning that you have already committed to address the effects of future fires and to try to mitigate those effects and plan for those effects from future fires. Again, thank you.
And I'd like to bring up our new Colorado State Forester, Mike Lester.
Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate that. Good morning. My name is Mike Lester, and I'm the director of the Colorado State Forest Service. The Colorado State Forest Service is honored to be a member of the Colorado Big Thompson Headwaters Partnership and to be the lead state agency for forest management, stewardship, fuel reduction, and wildfire mitigation assistance for the 7 million acres of non-federal forest land in Colorado. It's important to recognize that issues of forest health do not recognize ownership boundaries. Work must be done on federal lands. Work must be done on state lands, and work must be done on private land. But work cannot stop at property lines because the problems don't stop at property lines. Land managers must be able to work just as effectively across boundaries to deal with forest health issues. The Headwaters Partnership provides an ideal pilot program to show how the collaborative efforts of federal, state, local, and private organizations can work together across property lines to ensure a healthy forest, and also ensure the protection of our water resources at the landscape scale. It is our hope, and apparently that hope has been realized, that the success of this project will be reapplied across the western landscape. Ron Cousineau, our district forester of the Colorado State Forest Service Granby District, who was instrumental in working with other partners in the formation of this memorandum of understanding with Jerry Gibbons of Northern Waters, another key player, have already planned their first mitigation project. This project is a timber sale, which will not only create a younger, more vigorous forest, but will also reinvest proceeds into other restoration projects. I want to thank you for inviting us and for the opportunity to reinforce two really important principles. The first is the importance of collaboration. And last, but certainly not least, it's the importance of healthy forests and the creation of healthy watersheds. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite the secretaries up for our signing, as well as all of the folks that have been on partners for the Colorado Big Thompson Headwaters Partnership. Well, thank you very much, and the secretaries will be available for interviews and the press. I think we're going to put people over there at that picnic table. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your presence here today. Thank you.